The news first on BBC One with Michael Burke at 9:30
Tanzania's appealed to the world for help in coping with thousands of Rwandan refugees. But some of those heading there in the latest exodus have decided to return to their camps in Burundi. The Shadow Chancellor has accused the government of hypocrisy by talking of cutting taxes in the week they were raising them. And 2 goals from Steve McManaman win the Coca-Cola Cup for Liverpool. Good evening. Tanzania said today it could no longer feed the 750,000 Rwandan refugees who fled there. Conditions in the camps are said to be deteriorating and there's food only for another fortnight. Tanzania's foreign minister has appealed for urgent help from the outside world. Tanzania had closed its borders to the latest wave of Rwandan refugees from Burundi. Many of them are said to have turned back after promises of greater security from the Burundi government.
By dawn today, the thousands of Hutu refugees here had made their decision. They would stay in Burundi after all, despite their fears that Tutsi death squads will attack them. Reluctantly, they agreed to walk once more, this time to a new camp that's been set up for them, with promises that it will be properly protected by the Burundian army. Yet again, the refugees were on the road and carrying all they possess. Today we visited their new camp, which is in a forest not far from Burundi's border with Tanzania. Straight away, these people have set about turning trees into instant homes. They have become highly proficient at the business of being a refugee. They originally fled here from Rwanda last summer, only to uproot themselves again this week, panic-stricken that Burundi was about to become engulfed in the same ethnic violence between Hutus and Tutsis as their homeland. For the time being, at least, these people do seem prepared to stay here, and United Nations officials say the attempted exodus from Burundi is over. But the refugees here are still terrified of attack by Tutsi extremists, and it won't take much to make them set off on the road again. The aid agencies know this is not an ideal solution, and we witnessed scenes of chaos this afternoon when they started distributing water. But at least they will be able to get enough supplies to this new camp to reduce the danger of disease that's been hanging over the Rwandan Hutus all week. Indeed, several thousand of the refugees are now returning to the camps they abandoned only a few days ago. They clambered onto lorries laid on by the United Nations Refugee Agency. They're being taken away from the border and deeper into Burundi. Their panic has eased somewhat, but they know they're still vulnerable here to their old tribal enemy, the Tutsis, and they're certainly nervous about what they may be going back to. Ben Brown, BBC News, Burundi.
Here, the Shadow Chancellor, Gordon Brown, has condemned Conservative promises of tax cuts as the height of hypocrisy. He said they were being made in the week that indirect taxes were rising again. The Employment Secretary, Michael Portillo, has acknowledged that there was a political crisis. He said it was because the differences between the Conservative and Labour parties had become blurred.
John Major did his best yesterday to boost Tory morale ahead of the local elections that senior ministers acknowledge will be difficult. He spoke then of a new phase of Conservatism, though his Employment Secretary acknowledged today it's become increasingly hard to offer a distinctive Conservative message.
The other party, the main political party, the Labour Party, has abandoned its own principles and has come to accept most of what this government has done. The crisis that is faced by our party is not that they have lost faith in what we want to do or what we have done, but rather that the difference between the parties has become blurred.
Labour are highlighting the effect this week of reductions in mortgage interest relief and the married couples allowance, which they say makes Tory promises of tax reductions the height of hypocrisy.
Repeating tired old promises of tax cuts in the week you are raising taxes for the 20th time in 2 years does not add up to a new policy.
Scottish voters will give their verdict this Thursday. The government's opponents say they'll wipe them out.
I think we might well see the Conservative Party in Scotland all but disappear from the local government map of Scotland. And if that is what happens, then I think they will have very much brought it upon themselves.
So we're out campaigning for them.
With 3 days to go, the Nationalists are focusing on Labour as their main target.
Tony Blair is a Tory. He's a nice Tory, certainly. He's got a good haircut, a smile and a blow-dry, but he's still a Tory. And I think the point I'm making is Scotland's had a bellyful of Tories over the last few years, and we don't want to substitute Tory.
The Scottish results will be watched anxiously here at Downing Street. A bad poll in Scotland would damage the Conservatives' already grim prospects in England and Wales, and the kind of heavy losses there that many analysts are predicting would revive speculation about John Major's very future at number 10. Gito Hari, BBC News, Downing Street.
Serb forces have launched an offensive against the Muslim enclave of Bihać in Bosnia. The UN says 13 shells landed in the designated safe area, 6 of them in Bihać town. But there are no reports of civilian injuries, and the UN says that NATO airstrikes are not likely.
North of Bihać, soldiers of the Bosnian Army's 5th Corps are fighting the Serbs almost hand-to-hand for control of the town of Velika Kladuša. Government soldiers are surrounded in the Bihać pocket not only by Bosnian Serbs, but by Croatian Serbs and rebel Muslims in loose alliance with them. Still, the Army's 5th Corps has been making gains in recent days, out of the trench lines now and in open country. The Army's 5th Corps is fighting for its survival. Its commander, General Atif Dudakovic, is on the front lines almost daily. His men are outgunned by their many enemies, but they have some heavy weapons, a T-55 tank and 20mm cannon. Last December's ceasefire never meant much in Bihać anyway. Now it's crumbling rapidly in other parts of Bosnia, well ahead of the supposed expiration date of the end of this month. Next Wednesday, the Bosnian war will be 3 years old.
Do you see any end to this war?
Not yet. Not at all. I had some hopes 2-3 months ago that the international community, whatever it is, would take serious steps to end this disgrace, this tragedy, this public execution of a country and a people. But now I know that all they want is contain and wait.
Bosnian radio reported this morning a fierce counterattack on these soldiers by the forces surrounding them. The report spoke of everything burning from the shelling. Both the government army and the Serbs are known to be preparing major offensives, and there are no peace talks even in sight. Martin Bell, BBC News, Sarajevo.
6 Palestinians, including a baby, have been killed in the town of Gaza after a bomb being handled by Islamic militants exploded prematurely. The blast wrecked a block of flats in a residential area. 3 members of the Islamic resistance movement Hamas were among the dead. Hamas has carried out a series of attacks on Israel in recent months. In Chechnya, the last town held by separatist forces has fallen to the Russian army. Shali became the headquarters of the Chechen rebels after the fall of the capital Grozny 2 months ago. The rebels have fled to the mountains but have promised to fight on. Canada and the European Union say they're making progress in resolving the fishing dispute off Newfoundland. The 2 sides are holding discussions in Brussels and say they're hoping for a solution later this week. Spain has again been fishing in the disputed waters, but Canada has said it won't take any action. Here, army experts are in the final stages of defusing a Second World War German bomb in Portland, Dorset. They hope to complete the operation by later tonight, which would mean thousands of residents can return home.
Captain Mike Lobb from the Royal Engineers has been working non-stop since yesterday lunchtime to defuse the half-ton World War II German bomb. So far, he has deactivated the fuse and cut holes in the casing, so the high explosives inside can be steamed out. Because of the risk of explosion, 4,000 people were moved out of their homes, leaving the centre of the island deserted. Many are spending the weekend at holiday camps, where entertainment with a wartime flavour has been laid on.
It's not a holiday, but it's like a holiday.
Are you looking forward to going home now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Get back to normal, like. Just hope they don't find another one.
The Royal Engineers hope to finish work on the bomb tonight. As soon as the area is declared safe, the roadblocks will come down and the evacuees will be able to return home. Steve Humphrey, BBC News, Portland.
The Marquess of Blandford has tonight been charged with theft, forging prescriptions and making off from a taxi without paying. The 39-year-old aristocrat, who's being held overnight at a police station in West London, will appear at Horseferry Road Magistrates Court tomorrow. The 29-year-old Mexican runner Dionisio Cerrón has become the first man to win the London Marathon twice. He followed his win last year by out-sprinting Australia's Commonwealth champion Steve Moneghetti. One competitor died during the race. So far, the organisers haven't given any details.
Damon Hill, the starter.
Damon Hill, more used to a different kind of racing, signalled the start of the men's marathon. An elite group of runners quickly left the majority behind. It developed into a dramatic battle for victory, with Mexico's Dionisio Cerrón, last year's winner, clinching it in the final 200 metres. There was a similar struggle for supremacy in the women's race, with a title won by Poland's Małgorzata Sobańska, who beat her own personal best. For the thousands of other runners, the priority was finishing the course, not collecting the medals. The warm weather was a problem, with athletes succumbing to heat exhaustion and dehydration. Some did take precautions. The news of a competitor's death will no doubt cast a shadow over a day of enjoyment for many, not least those who didn't really seem suitably dressed for the spring sunshine. As the hours ticked by, the runners trickled towards the end. Among them, 88-year-old Mavis Lindgren, the oldest person ever to finish the London Marathon. Her motto, if you go that far, you don't want to quit. Peter Hunt, BBC News.
Liverpool have won football's Coca-Cola Cup for a record 5th time. 2 individual goals from Steve McManaman at Wembley this afternoon gave them a 2-1 victory over First Division Bolton Wanderers. Earlier, Manchester United's hopes of retaining their Premiership title suffered a significant setback.
At last, a Coca-Cola Cup final that had both fizz and a flavour to linger in the memory, due in no small measure to a sparkling display from Bolton, whose Alan Thompson so nearly gave them a first-half lead. But it was Liverpool, 4 times previous winners, who went in front, their goal owing everything to Steve McManaman's individual skill. And in the second half, he did it again, producing from seemingly nothing a goal to rank among Wembley's best. Many a side would have buckled then, but Bolton responded by showing the resolve that could sustain them in the Premiership should they win promotion. Thompson rattling in a volley that preserved hope, which was ultimately in vain. For Liverpool, a record 5th success in the competition, and for their manager, Roy Evans, a trophy in his first full season in charge. Meanwhile, in the FA Carling Premiership, Manchester United's grip on the title is loosening. 6 points behind Blackburn, victory today was nigh on imperative. But while they flapped incessantly round the Leeds goal, like seagulls round a sardine trawler, as Monsieur Cantona might have put it, they had to settle for a goalless draw. The air of resignation at the end, an acknowledgement that the Championship is now Blackburn's to lose. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
And the main news again. Tanzania has said it can no longer feed the 750,000 Rwandan refugees who fled there and has appealed to the world for urgent help. But some refugees have begun to return to their camps in Burundi. That's all from the newsroom tonight. Good night.
Good evening. There'll be some more fine sunsets to look forward to across southern Britain during the next few days. Mind you, there is a price to be paid for this settled weather. It's all down to an area of high pressure, and that high pressure is causing some rather poor television and radio reception. Of course, it does mean, with the high hanging around during Monday and Tuesday, it'll keep these weather fronts at bay across northern parts of the British Isles, and that's where we've got some rain at the moment on the weather radar across the far north. Some fairly heavy bursts of rain moving across the northern tip of the island of Lewis across towards Orkney. That's where the rain's going to stay overnight in these far northwestern parts of the British Isles. The other side of it, Shetland, is some very cold air. In fact, there tonight there could be a touch of frost, perhaps even some ice on the roads. For the rest of us, though, it should be a relatively mild night. Some of this low cloud creeping inland, some mist and drizzle around these western coasts where it'll linger through the day during Monday. But for central and eastern parts of England, it'll brighten up. There'll be some sunshine around. Further north, the rain will slip a little bit further to the south. That means rather more in the way of cloud across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northern England tomorrow. And it also means that cold wintry weather may turn up in the far north of Scotland. Quite a contrast in temperature across the British Isles.
BBC One's 999 is back. with more real-life stories of rescue and recovery and more information on first aid and survival. The return of 999, Friday, 9:30, BBC One.
BBC Two, in about 5 minutes, is in a Los Angeles courtroom to follow the continuing trial of O.J. Simpson.